決して悪に負けない。それを今教えてやる。全てを切り裂く力をこの手に。
Hello and welcome back to another Plamo review. Today we're taking a look at the High Grade Infinitism Mazinkaiser. And starting off as always with the articulation, head is on a ball joint which goes down into the neck. There's also a hinge at the front of the neck which lets you do that. Surprisingly, not much to the back though. You kind of got to pop the ball joint up a bit in order to have him look up, which exposes the gap under there, but it's not a huge deal. No impeding anything here for the rotation, so you get a full rotation there, no trouble. The shoulders have a front-back hinge, and despite how bulky everything is, you can actually get the arm somewhat across the chest, which is pretty impressive. Much like the Mazinger, the shoulder armor is separate from the actual hinge in there, and this piece, which is supposed to be part of the bicep, is its own little spike, which that's what they get for reusing parts, but it looks fine. It's not a huge deal. With the ball joint in here, you can get about an A pose, which is mostly just because this ring on the shoulder piece inhibits how far out that can hinge. You could always just cut a slot there if you don't care about aesthetics, but for the sake of the sculpt, I can understand why they did that. Is a bicep rotation, a hinge here for about 45 degrees, and then a rotation at the bottom of that because of the rocket punch. Then there's a fairly well hidden second hinge down here, which gives you pretty much a full bend at the elbow, which is pretty impressive, honestly. Good engineering there. And the hand, as always, is on a ball joint, though honestly you don't get much use out of the ball joint itself, but it's rotation and a hinge, and you can get a little bit of movement out of the ball joint before it falls off. The chest is on a ball joint, which is pretty decent. The waist is just a swivel, but that's fine. Side skirts are ball jointed. Hips are the really weird ones that they decided to go with for these. Basically it has a hinge, and then a peg, and the front skirt piece is attached onto the thigh for some reason. That said, you can still get a fairly high kick given that strange design. You can have it sitting down, which is impressive. Of course, as you saw, there's a thigh swivel, though just because of how all the sculpt works, you don't get a full rotation there. Is a double jointed knee for just over 90 degrees. I feel like they probably could have worked in a little bit more of a bend than that, but that's not bad. It doesn't look bad from the front at least, so can't really complain. And the ankle is the same as Mazinger, which is ball joint, hinge, and a slight pivot there, so you get about as much range as you could expect from this design. It's nothing crazy, but it works well enough. So overall, the articulation is fine. It does the job. You can get this in pretty much whatever pose you want it to be in anyway. Now, getting into accessories, let's start off, as always, with the sticker sheet and by extension, color correction. Not that much to go over here, thankfully. The blue is plastic, but the red underneath the eyes either needs to be painted or you need to use a sticker. Also, the little black stripes there are sculpted in, so just a little bit of a black wash or something to bring that out. Same thing with the vents on the face plate there. Those need black, and black there. Not too bad. The eyes are gold plastic, so I just left those fine. They look good. This is blue plastic for this, but it's the same blue as this. So I just painted that over with like a metallic blue just to make it look a little bit better. Probably should have just been translucent blue, but I understand, you know, runner costs. The yellow with the black stripes on the side of this stickers, you get two because you can't unfold this, so they just gave you an unfolded one and a folded one. The Z in there is the sticker, and these two are for the final Kaiser blade. But that's the thing, other than that little bit of paint on the head, there's no other paint on this, aside from a couple little touch-ups for some ugly nubs that I just went over with a little bit of silver just to hide that, because of the way that silver injection plastic looks. But that wasn't necessary paint. This thing is really good when it comes to color separation. Now, getting into accessories proper, we should talk about that unfolded pile there, because it's like four pieces. The dome and this are the same for both of them, but then the rest of it is, you know, separate, obviously. Because the nose is supposed to fold down and collapse in, and these are supposed to fold down, and also collapse in, which is just physically impossible at this scale, so I understand why they just gave you two. Now, I should probably go over the hands. You get the two closed fists, and you get the two holding hands for all the swords. The thing is, they do include more hands on the runner, but you don't get the wrist pieces to actually attach them. Now, you could swap the wrist pieces, but those are C-clips, and I will defend C-clips, but popping them in and out when they're hard plastic over and over again will wear them out pretty quickly. So, if you want to use one of these hands, just sacrifice the closed fists, or whichever hands you don't plan on using, I guess. Considering these hinges were on a new runner anyway, you could have just included two more. If you had to include this runner anyway, there was no reason not to. Yeah, they're currently holding the final Kaiser blade, which has the other stickers in there. I get the feeling it doesn't want to focus on it. You can't really see it. Yeah, you can just barely see it. Both sides. Put the sticker in, put the clear piece on top. It's perfectly fine. This is the same on all blades. The blade actually does have sort of an Obari pose shaping built into it, which is nice. So you have it at this angle, and it looks really cool. The other angles make it look a little goofy, but it's an aesthetic thing. I really like that they did that at all, to be honest. You do get the other two Kaiser blades, which are not that much smaller, and they do have widening towards the end, just not as obvious. They do also include Greats blades, which is weird that they didn't just reuse them for this, but they're actually noticeably smaller, so I kind of understand why. Finally, for accessories for the base Kaiser, you do get the Turbo Smasher Punch effect parts. Nice of them to include too. Literally just pop the arm off at the elbow, and they don't give you caps for these ones, unlike with the Mazinger Z, which I gave you a little cap to plug on there. No, for this you just leave the peg, which is, it's fine. That's not a complaint, it's just funny. Anyway, plug that in, looks good. And you can't actually plug this in. You use one of these. This is an octagonal hole in the back of this. So you plug one of those little two-way adapters that has a 3mm hole, and you can attach that to pretty much anything, including the arm itself. Not the tightest thing in the world, but if you have the arm up, it works. And finally, you do get the Kaiser Scrander. These back wings are kind of terrifying. Not only are they really sharp, like really sharp. You could draw blood with these. They're really fragile. Well, probably not really fragile, but they're scarily thin compared to everything else on this. This just plugs into the back, fully color separated, and it does actually have articulation. I mean, that's maybe pushing it a little bit, but you can't actually articulate the wings, which is pretty crazy. This also is technically supposed to be a throwing weapon, but yeah, your guess is as good as mine how to actually display it doing that. Finally, you do get a stand action-based forearm with a single black base. This is a stand adapter for them. And you do get the flying one, but these are useless. So, yeah, don't bother. It doesn't clip on to the parts or anything. It literally just holds it if you balance it right. This works just as well. There's no reason to use it. Nice idea, terribly flawed execution for both this great Mazinger design and the original Mazinger Z1. They're just useless. This works great though. And one more thing before we do a size comparison. I can't even bother to go over all of this. There's so much leftover parts. There's like half a great Mazinger in here. And as for a quick size comparison with the Kaiser Skrander on, because it adds a lot of width. Yeah. This thing is stupidly big. Mazinkaiser itself is mostly just in the shins. Like this is almost the same length, really. But this is huge. This is massive. So to wrap this review up, the Infinitism Mazinkaiser is a pretty great kit. The engineering's solid, the articulation does the job. It does what you want, at least. I wish the neck and the knees were a little bit better, but it's not a deal breaker or anything. The accessories are nice. I wish they just gave you the extra wrists so you could have all 6 hands, but whatever. It's not a deal breaker either. Thankfully, since Mazinkaiser has panel lines anyway, the Infinitism jank doesn't quite ruin the aesthetic for it. It actually looks quite nice, even with the extra panel lines. This is a very imposing, very pretty kit that I'm happy to have on my shelf. Out of all the Mazins they've made in Infinitism, I think I like the Kaiser the most. And that's all for this video. Thank you very much for watching. Be sure to let me know what you think down in the comments below. Subscribe and hit the bell to be alerted for future reviews. Come chill in the Discord. Follow me on Twitter, if that's even still around. And consider supporting me on Patreon so I can keep bringing you videos like this. And, as always, until next time, happy building.